there's 45 people or more on this call right now, and I'm only seeing 4 people who have participated and put down their gratitudes. Here's my question for you. Are you going to play full out today, or are you just going to kind of just meander through life and just not get committed and not be part of the deal? So look, if you're on the call, play full out. 2 things. 1, you're grateful for. 1 thing you intend to have happen. And let's get serious. I want you to participate in this thing. So look, you also, what I want in that chat box from you is I want you to write down 1 thing after today, sometime during to this day, this next 20 minutes we're going to spend together. Let's write down 1 thing that you've learned, 1 of your takeaways from today's message. So look, you know, I remember years ago, and I was on a little, I was at a youth conference. I was at a conference where there was a ton of young people, anywhere from ages 12 to 18. And there was a handful of leaders that were there and some of my dear friends. In fact, I think even Sam Bell was there and others. But I had an opportunity that morning, on an early morning in that 2 or 3 day event, to go on a hike. And I remember the night before, I was asked by a friend of mine, some of you may know a friend by the name of Eric Barlow, dear friend of mine, lives over in California, but lived in Utah for some time. And when he asked me that night, he goes, hey, do you want to go on a hike? Myself and a gentleman by the name of Jeff Flam. Now, if you don't know Jeff Flam has done some very, very successful things and is worth a lot of money. I'm going to tell you more about his story in a moment. But I said to Eric, I said, sure, what time are we going? He goes, oh, we're going to get up around 4:30 in the morning. I said, what? We're going to get up at 4:30 in the morning. He goes, yes, we're going to start on the trail so that we're at the top of the mountain, basically when the sun rises. So we start on this hike at 4:30 in the morning, and we start hiking. And there's just 4 of us, myself and Eric and Jeff and a young man who said, hey, I want to go with you guys too. And so he was able to get himself out of bed. And we started on this little trek, and it wasn't a major hike. It was maybe 3 or 4 miles, but we hiked up 3 or 4 miles, got up to the top of this peak. Well, during this hike, as the daylight started to come, and it was in the dawn, I started having a conversation with this gentleman by the name of Jeff, and Jeff had an interesting philosophy. He was very, very wealthy. He had had tremendous success. And what Jeff had done is he had built a quasi kind of fleet/insurance type of company for different businesses. And him and his brother had built this company. And in the entire time that they were building this company, it was interesting. They never took out, now imagine this, they took 10 years, and this is important, 10 years to the date, like literally almost to the very day, 10 years that they built this company. And in this 10-year period of time, they never, watch this, they never paid themselves more than an $80,000 salary. $80,000, no dividends out of the company, no extra slush fund out of the company, 80 grand. 10 years they did this. And for 10 years, they worked on building this business. And they earned 80 grand each per year. And they had fairly large families. I think Jeff has nearly 5 kids. I mean, he's taken on, obviously a lot of responsibilities with his family, but he kept it very, very simple, kept things very, very humble. Well, about 10 years into this thing, he started having negotiations with Chrysler. And it might have been Chrysler GMC or whatnot, right? And he started having these conversations about selling off this business. Well, by the time he had built this company a 10-year period of time, earning only $80,000 a year, basically almost to the day, as I'm sitting, as we're walking down this trail, he tells me this story. And then he stops and he turns around. He said, George, almost 10 years to the very day is when I sold the company. And I went from earning $80,000 a year to a net worth of over $50 million. And of course I was floored. I mean, this is, maybe 10 or 12 years ago when I heard this story. And he stopped on the trail and he turned around and he said these words to me. He said, anyone who believes that they're going to create anything of great significance and acquire, millions of dollars of wealth, and they believe that they're going to do it in less than 10 years is fooling themselves. He said there is a magical number to this 10 years. And then if you've ever read the book called Outliers, they talk about this 10 years and 10,000 hours of mastering your craft. So there's something to be had about this 10 years. And he went on to say, he goes, look, he goes, nowadays I have tons of people come to me, and what they're doing is they come and they present their new business ideas. And he said, the very first thing as my filter to getting rid of people who have an idea is this. He always asks them, how quickly do you think this can be done? And he says that, and then he said, if they say less than 10 years, he says, I have no interest in whatever it is that they have to put together. And I thought, wow. He said, numerous people come to me, oh, in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you're going to be rich. You're going to figure this whole thing out. It's going to be totally figured out by now. So here's the question for you. Right now on this call, I've got a bunch of new licensees, of course. I've got, seasoned vets who've been doing this a long time. And I've got, agents that have been doing it maybe for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But here's the real question. It's not, we know that it's going to take it's a process, right? It's been said that we're going to overestimate, make sure you hear that, overestimate what we're going to do in a year or two. And we grossly underestimate what we can do in 4 or 5 years. And we get so committed to a world of instant gratification that to believe and to think that we will assemble the millions of dollars in a very short period of time, or tremendous success in a very short period of time, is absolutely poor business sense. So there are 2 words that I want you to write down here. I want you to write down the word persistence, and I want you to write down the word patience. Because what I realized on that day was just a year or 2 later is when we began the process of creating Everest, the brokerage. And I remember I had a handful of different agents, 3 or 4 of them, come to me and say, George, before I join your company, I want to know how long you're going to do this. And I had already made a decision that I was not going to look left, I was not going to look right, but I would not waver from the new little thing, it's like the movie Up, the little cartoon where the dogs are there and they say squirrel and they all look over, right? I was not going to divert. I was not going to look left. I was not going to look right. I would not waver from building the organization. And I would share that with people. And the reason they were asking is because I had worked at something for 3 or 4 years, and then I'd try something different. Then I would work for 3 or 4 years, and I'd try something different. And that went from, well, guys, I'll give you the list here. I went from, people don't even know this. Oftentimes I don't talk about it a lot. I did a little bit of financial planning. I did a little bit of mortgage banking and mortgage lending. I did a little bit of network marketing. I did a handful of things. And frankly, I'd arguably say I wasted a decade of just kind of piddling around and jumping around and trying to figure out my path, but I never figured out this idea during that time period of long-term persistence and being patient in the process. So here's the question for you. What is your vision? What does it look like? How far out is it? How hard are you really working? See, for my seasoned vets who are on this call, ask yourself this question, which is, have I committed 100% for a 10-year period of time? 100% commitment for a 10-year period of time. Now, for those of you who are just starting in this business, and I can tell you this, the older you are, the longer it may take you. Why? Because you have old habits, bad habits, and things you're going to fight before you simply submit to the process, the persistence and the patience that is necessary. So, are you willing to commit for 10 years to figuring this out? That may seem like a long time, but in reality, it's not. It's not. 10 years will go like that. You and I both know it. It will go like that. So here's the other thing. People say, oh, well, come on, George, that's easy for you to say today. I mean, today you have 9 or 10 different companies that you run. You're the CEO of this $100 million organization. You have 1,000 agents. mortgage, lending, title, escrow, all these. And you may say, well, that was really easy. No, it was some of the worst moments of my life over the last decade. For some of you who may not remember, in the first 12 to 18 months of this business and building Everest, I had heart surgery, knee surgeries, 2 eye surgeries. I had a ACL that I blew out and had to have repaired, and surgery there. And then you guys know this. Some of you have heard me talk about this. And I almost choked to death on a bottle cap in an 18-month period. Anything that seemed like could try to divert me from my direction would come, and it would somehow try to implode the direction I was taking. But then 18 months into it, do you know how much I earned in 18 months in building Everest? I did not earn more than $35,000. That was my income for nearly 2 years in 09 and 10. It was the same for John Syatt. It was the same for Rob Oakey. It was the same for Gretchen Smoot. There was just a few of us in that first 18 months of building this thing. So here's the reason I'm bringing this up. So then imagine this, 2 years into this thing, 20 months to be exact, I get a phone call from a gentleman by the name of Matt Macris. Some of you may know him who are listening, especially if you're from Coldwell Banker. Well, they had let go the president of Utah for Coldwell Banker. I got a phone call. The phone call went a little bit like this. Hey, we'd like you to come in and interview for the presidency of the job. I went in and interviewed. And in the process of all the interviews, I got the job. I was actually granted the position. Let me tell you what the position did in regards to income. I'm earning $35,000 a year. I was offered a position for $335,000, $2 million of life insurance policy. I knew what my health insurance was going to be. I knew what my health benefits were going to be. I knew every angle of this thing, and they offered me the job. I went from the East Coast to the West Coast for interviews, red carpet treatment, Broadway shows, the whole works. Granted the position. They wanted to buy Everest in its infancy at 20 months. We had 100 agents in the company. We were doing $2.5 million of business at the time. Nothing. But the key thing is I was earning $35,000 a year. I was offered $335,000 base salary, 2-year guarantee of $50,000 bonuses. Nearly $400,000 guaranteed income for the next 2 years. Minimum guaranteed, no matter how good or bad I was. And I remember going through that and believing that I thought, man, this is the way to get out of all of my pain and all the agony that I've got. Building this company is so ruthless, so tough. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if we can put this thing together. Maybe even I should sell the company. This is way back in the day. Maybe I sell the 100 agents or the entity, whatever you want to call it, to Coldwell, and I become the president. See where that takes me. And you know what? No one would blame me for that decision. But I remember being on that mountain with Jeff Flam when he stopped on the trail and he turned around and he said, nothing is built that is great if it is less than 10 years. So again, I go back to that at that moment, and I can still remember the heartache and the pain and the challenge of the moment of declining the presidency, declining, not making almost any money, and immediately so much pain could have disappeared. Today, I look back and I think to myself, oh my goodness, what would my life look like? Would it be bad? No, I don't think it would be bad. Do I think it would be horrible? No, probably wouldn't be horrible because that's not who I am, and nor would I let it be. But what I am so grateful for is reminding myself at my worst moments that if I will stay the course, if I will submit to a process, if I will master my mindset, my skill sets, and my personal disciplines in this business, as I work more on myself than I do at my own job, I will become more. And I know that we kind of get that cabin fever, that itch to do something different, something that will liberate us from the pain and the agony of the moment, to not have to prospect or to do something different or new, sometimes it can be change companies, change that, change my profession, go do something different. And it feels so right because you eliminate the pain. And one of the great challenges I see in humanity is that they interpret an answer from God as to what they're supposed to do because they are avoiding the pain of a moment. I'll repeat that again. Avoiding the pain of the moment, the pain of prospecting, the pain of presentation skills, the pain of learning a presentation for listings and for buyers, the pain of going and knocking on doors, the pain of picking up a phone, the pain of whatever it may be, that they believe the escape of the pain is an answer to a prayer. And I'm here to tell you that it is oftentimes in the process of that pain, that agony, and that persistence and patience that's necessary for you to figure out how to do this business and to really, truly win the game of real estate. And if you want to win the game, you want to become your very best, you want to persevere, you want to persist, and you want to see your patience pay off, then stay the course for well over a decade and see what happens. So I go back to my seasoned vets who are listening, and I go back, of course, to the new licensees, or those of you who have been doing this for 3 or 4 years. Have you paid the price for a solid 10 years of commitment? Not just existing for 10 years in this business, a price that you pay, persistence, submission to a process and to a program, mastering the skills, mastering the dialogues, mastering your scripts. Have you done that? And if you have, here's what I will promise you: tremendous wealth. Great wealth will come your way. Great wealth will be your benefit and will be your prize, not only internally, but economically, if you will pay the price. So again, I challenge you that nothing great will happen for you if you do not commit for a 10-year period of time. Nothing significant will happen in this business if you are not willing to put on the blinders and say, man, this is my path. This is the direction I choose to go. This is where I'm heading. This is what I'm doing. And I don't care how good and shiny and how beautiful other things look. You do not waver. Now, in the minutes that we have left, I want to mention this. People always ask this question to me, George, but how do you decide which path is right? It's a good question, right? How do I know that, man, if I'm going to say, man, today is my day that I'm going to commit for 10 years, 10 years, my path, unwavering. How do I know if it's the right path? Well, here's my answer for you. I don't know if it ultimately matters. People are like, what? What I do know is that if you decide, and you decide on something pretty good, which real estate is a pretty good decision, that what if you took the next 10 years? Some of you will say, oh, I'm too old to do this. I'm too old to make a lot of money. Really? People are living to 100+ years today all over the place. I was sitting in a doctor's appointment with my dad, who is 83 years old, who raised me. And I'm sitting there and they tell him that he has a 40% chance, because he's in such good shape and taking care of himself, that he has a 40% chance to live over age 100. He retired when he was 55. 45 years he'll live having been retired is possibly his outcome. I don't know if it will be for sure or not. But what I do know is that I don't care how old you are not too old to start. And what if you committed for 10 years? What if you committed to not looking left, not looking right, but you took just 100% commitment? What would it look like? What could happen for you? Not some flash in the pan, not some, hey, get rich quick scheme. Like, what happens if you paid the price? What would it look like economically for you? What would it look like for your success? How much money could you earn? How many deals could you close? How many families could be helped? How many dreams could be realized? What vision would you accomplish? Where could you travel? What adventures could you have? What memories could you create? if you committed for 100% of every action towards a path in that decision. So here's the deal. Again, I don't know if it matters exactly how and what you choose, but what I do know is you got to choose. And when it gets tough, do not waver. When it gets difficult, do not waver. When you get discouraged, do not waver. When you feel bored, do not waver. When you feel like you want to do something else, don't waver. When someone offers you something better, don't waver. That's how you get rich. And if you look at any of the top agents, whether it's Brian Burnett, Tina Hare, Debbie Gates, Trish Perez, Kathleen Bruno, Brian Noel, Ruth Ann Noel, Dave Parker, all of these people that I list have a 10-year plan or more, and they have persisted, and they are earning hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. And we will look at them and go, man, it's so magical. It's not magical. What's magical, though, I will say, is that they stay the course and they do not waver. So anything of any great significance will always take a decade. Always. So in wrapping up, I'm going to ask you again, what are you grateful for? Because the great eliminator of fear is gratitude. You want to set your intentions, stay your course, and know what they are, and begin to execute. Will there be tough moments? Of course there will. Will there be difficulty? Of course there will. Will there be times where you're discouraged? Of course there will be. Will there be times where you just don't even feel like doing and selling any real estate? Of course there will. Of course. That's the deal. Because if it was so easy, everybody would do it. So it's going to be discouraging. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. But do not waver. Now look, you and I both know that if you're going to go down this path, you got to surround yourself with the right people. So whether that be with one of your great managers, whichever office you work in, or whether that be with one of our coaches with ESS, but gosh, if you're getting phone calls from the Brad Eads or from the Brandon Earls or from the John Rhodes and others, man, take a moment and recognize that if you're fully committed, you've got to put the right people around you, whether that be mentors, coaches, managers, leaders who will influence you and move you along as you're struggling, as you're having trials, as you make errors, as you go through the process. That's the nature of the beast of being great. So here's my commitment to you. A year ago, when we hit our 10-year mark, or 18 months ago now, I committed saying, you know what? I am not going to look left or right for another decade, and I'll see where that takes me. And people say, well, have you already arrived? I don't know, but I love the idea of a 10-year block. So guys, I've got 8.5 more years where I'm not looking left, I'm not looking right, and I am going to remain focused and building, growing, and developing this organization. That's my commitment. Can you look at your family? Can you look at the ones you love? Can you look at the people you care for? Can you sit in a quiet moment with your journal and just simply write down what you're going to do and where your vision of the future of your life is? The key to great decision making is the ability to make a choice as to where you are going. You want to make bad decisions? Don't know where you're going. You want to make poor decisions? It will come from the fact of wavering on where you're going. Picking one thing and choosing then another. Choosing this, then choosing another thing. Know your direction and persist and be patient. Now look, in closing, patience and persistence are key. But remember, you will be met, as Napoleon Hill talks in his book, Think and Grow Rich, you will be met with temporary defeat and setbacks. Know that will happen. Guaranteed. Not a chance it won't. So when it comes, and when the storms come, do not waver. When the difficulty comes, do not waver. When the challenges come, do not waver. Persist and be patient. Persist and be patient. It's not just be patient. It is persisting and following the program, the Everest program, right? The things we read here, the 12 steps, right? Spend an hour of the day working on yourself. Work harder on yourself than you even do at this job, and watch what can happen. If you haven't figured out yet that real estate is an inside game, it is about working from the inside out, then you have missed something and you have not heard one word I've had to say. This game of committing yourself and winning the game of real estate is about becoming more. So the question of the day then is, how long are you going to do this? And here's the second question of the day. Who must I become to earn blank dollars? Who must I become to help blank families? Who must I become to sell a certain number of homes? In the becoming, who you become will be far more important than what you actually do. I want you to think about that for a minute. When we say the choice of what should I choose? Should I do this or should I do that? Meaning the path of your career, your life. We get sometimes so worried about what we're actually doing that maybe our focus should be more on who we're becoming. If you find yourself struggling with certain things in this business, that maybe be a good thing, because it will help eliminate and really purify your ability to think, purifying your ability to speak, purifying the disciplines of your life. Fundamentally, guys, this business is no different than it was 25 years ago or 26 years ago when I got in it. There's discount brokers everywhere. Okay, there wasn't the internet, no, but there was every single home magazine known to mankind, and that was the way you were supposed to get your business, buying the business through Homes Illustrated and other books, if some of you may remember. And now we buy it through the internet. And all it is creating an efficiency to be able to do the one thing that's never going to change, and this public has spoken, and that is you got to communicate to other people. That's the beauty of our business, is that you get the chance and the opportunity fundamentally to become more. And the only way you can earn more is who you become. So persist, be patient. Yes, be kind to yourself, recognizing there will be temporary setbacks and defeats, but they're temporary. Persist, be patient, then persist, and then be patient, and be patient, and then persist, and see what can happen. See what can happen in your life and how extraordinary it can truly become. Guys, I hope you've learned something. I have to tell you, even speaking out loud, I have been reminded myself of the importance of personal structure in my business, persisting, being patient, having a long-term vision, seeing it myself, what I'll be doing for a decade, not looking left, not looking right, completely staying the course. I hope you've learned something. I hope you've taken something. Today, guys, play full out. Full out, right? Write down what you've learned. Let us know what you've learned. Share with this group what you learned. Share with what you're grateful for. Share with us where your vision and your intentions are for your life. Let's see where you're going. Let's see what's possible for you. I bet a lot. That I am certain of. All right, gang, have an extraordinary week. This is going to be a great week. So good to be with you. Know how important you are to the people who love you and are supporting you. Recognize that it will be tough for some of you to get the momentum going. That's okay. It's like the locomotive on the tracks, right? Just and by the time it's starting done, you get a little momentum, and you just start going down the track, and it's just right, just like that old steam locomotive. And you just got to get the wheels turning. And I get the fact for some of you, it's been a little bit. And don't let the market be what you do. Look, is the market better or are you better? Make sure both things are happening, gang. Make sure both things are